Imagine trapping yourself between two enemy armies. One army is inside a fortress, another is marching toward you from the horizon. Together, they outnumber your soldiers several times over. Most commanders would retreat. Julius Caesar did the exact opposite, and what happened next became one of the greatest military victories in history. The year was 52 BC. For nearly a decade, Caesar had been conquering Gaul, a vast region covering much of modern France. His victories had made him famous throughout Rome. Tribe after tribe had fallen before the disciplined Roman legions. It seemed as though the conquest was nearly complete. But beneath the surface, something dangerous was happening. The tribes of Gaul were beginning to unite. Leading them was a young chieftain named Vercingetorix. Unlike previous Gallic leaders, he understood something crucial. The Romans were nearly unbeatable in open battle, so instead of fighting Caesar on his terms, he attacked his weaknesses. Villages were burned, food supplies were destroyed, fields were set ablaze. As Roman soldiers marched across Gaul, they found empty landscapes where food should have been. For the first time in years, Caesar was struggling. And then Vercingetorix did something remarkable. He united dozens of tribes into a massive coalition against Rome. Suddenly, Caesar wasn't facing scattered rebellions. He was facing an entire nation. The campaign that followed became a deadly contest of strategy. Eventually, after several clashes, Vercingetorix withdrew his forces to a fortified hilltop settlement known as Alesia. At first glance, Alesia looked impossible to capture. Steep hills surrounded the city. Strong defenses protected its inhabitants. Thousands of warriors waited behind its walls. Most generals would have launched a direct assault. Caesar had a different idea. Instead of attacking the fortress, he decided to imprison it. Roman soldiers began constructing a massive ring of fortifications around Alesia. Trenches were dug, watchtowers were erected, defensive walls stretched for miles. The objective was simple: no one gets out, no one gets in. But there was a problem, a very big problem. Before the siege was fully completed, messengers escaped. They raced across Gaul calling for reinforcements. Soon, alarming reports reached Caesar. A gigantic relief army was gathering. Thousands upon thousands of warriors were marching toward Alesia, and they weren't coming to negotiate, they were coming to destroy him. Suddenly, Caesar found himself in an impossible situation. His army was besieging the fortress. Soon another army would arrive behind him. He was about to be trapped between two enemies. Most commanders would have abandoned the siege. Caesar chose something far more daring. He ordered the construction of a second defensive wall. The first wall faced inward toward Alesia. The second faced outward toward the approaching relief force. His soldiers worked day and night. When they finished, the Romans stood inside a giant fortress of their own creation, a fortress trapped between two hostile armies. The gamble was extraordinary. If either defensive line broke, the entire Roman army could be annihilated. Then the relief army arrived. The final battle began. Gallic warriors attacked from outside. At the same time, Vercingetorix launched assaults from within Alesia. The Romans were fighting on two fronts simultaneously. Every day brought new attacks. Every day brought new casualties. The pressure was relentless. Then came the crisis. The Gallic coalition discovered a weak point in the Roman defenses. Thousands of warriors surged toward it. The Roman line began to buckle. For a brief moment, total disaster seemed inevitable. If the defenses collapsed, Caesar's army would be surrounded and slaughtered. Everything he had achieved in Gaul would be lost. Caesar understood the danger immediately. Instead of staying safely behind the lines, he rode directly into the fighting. Wearing his distinctive red cloak, he made himself visible to his soldiers. The effect was immediate. Roman morale surged. Seeing their commander in the thick of the battle inspired exhausted legionaries to hold their ground. Then Caesar launched his counterattack. Fresh reserves were rushed into the fight. Roman cavalry swept around the enemy flank. The Gallic attackers suddenly found themselves under pressure from multiple directions. The momentum shifted, then it shattered. the massive assault collapsed. The relief army broke ranks and began to flee. After weeks of hope, the defenders inside Alesia realized the truth. No one was coming to save them. The next day, Vercingetorix surrendered. The rebellion was over. Caesar had won. The victory at Alesia secured Roman control over Gaul and transformed Caesar into the most celebrated military commander of his generation. Without Alesia, there may have been no crossing of the Rubicon, no Roman civil war, no rise of Caesar as the dominant figure in Roman history. But perhaps the most remarkable part of this story is how unlikely the victory was. Caesar didn't win because he had more soldiers. He didn't win because the odds favored him. He won because he turned an impossible situation into an opportunity. At Alesia, he trapped an enemy army, then trapped himself, and somehow emerged victorious. More than 2,000 years later, military historians still regard the Battle of Alesia as one of the greatest displays of strategic genius ever recorded. A reminder that sometimes the boldest decision is also the most dangerous, and occasionally it's the decision that changes history forever. If you enjoyed this story and want to uncover more of history's greatest battles, legendary leaders, and forgotten turning points, subscribe to Origin Quest Fact and join us on the next journey into the past.